Today we are pleased to welcome a very special guest, Toastmasters International Chief Executive Officer. Daniel Rex oversees 125 world headquarters staff members as they carry out the directives of the board of directors and membership at large. He also supports the board in making sure that organization's strategic objectives are implemented and executed. Rex has worked for Toastmasters for 23 years. Please help me welcome Daniel Rex.
Standing up. Thanks very much for that. It's fabulous to be here. Back in August at the International Convention in Cincinnati, I was chatting with some of the district leaders who were there attending, and I got to tell you, they're a little crazy. And so I'll leave my jacket unbuttoned. I didn't get any walk-in music.
Would you like some?
So back, I was talking to the crazy district leaders in August in Cincinnati at the International Convention. And they said, hey, why don't you come to, and then they said this word, and I didn't know what that word was. It turns out it was Nemacolin. I'd never heard of that. And they said, we're going to have a great district conference. Please come and attend that. And what Steve said about your district having been distinguished 6 of the last 7 years, that's very unique. That's a huge deal. It's a really big deal. And so I said, all right, I'll come and I'll try and figure out what it is that's happening in District 13 that's causing this to happen. I haven't found that out yet, but I hope by the end of the day I'll have figured that out, because I need to bottle it and share it with other districts around the world so that they can catch up to you. It's a very exciting thing. Big chunk of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, you're one of the top districts in the world. You're selected. It really is a big deal. It's a big deal. And what that means is that you're doing the right things. You're focusing on the things that you need to be. Melissa, thank you so much for what you said when you were up here earlier. She said that when she was at training, we talked about 3 things. Focus on the member experience, club quality, and brand consistency. That is just fantastic and fabulous. For the last 4 years in Toastmasters, we've been focusing on those things. And frankly, we've made up those phrases. And now people are using them, and they're saying them, and we're building it into the culture of the organization. As important as this event is, and as the district is, we're not in Toastmasters because of the district. We're in Toastmasters for the member experience. And the member experience is only fabulous when club quality is where it needs to be. And you're doing that. You're getting there. And when, as an organization, we focus on those things, then our effectiveness, our growth, the way that the world sees us will be exponentially better than it is now. Brand consistency is about when an individual walks into a Toastmasters club, they see what we need them to see. They see that experience unfolding. And when we're able to do that in every single club, then we've reached our objective. Right now, about 50% of Toastmasters clubs each year are distinguished. Only 50% meet the baseline or better. So that's 50% are distinguished selector presidents. We can do much better than that. We can do much better than that. But historically, we focused on some other things. We haven't focused on distinguished clubs and being distinguished and having club quality and making a fantastic member experience. And those are the things that we're focusing on now. So if you hear it from us again and again and again and again, that's why. That's why. We want the individual's experience to be fabulous. Yesterday, I met a young lady. We were at Cigna over in Pittsburgh. And I said, so tell me about your Toastmasters experience. She said, you know, I joined just a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. We're here to start a new club, and yet she already joined. This club hasn't yet chartered. She said, yeah, I came to the first meeting, and I was so excited that I went out and I joined another Toastmasters club. And I've already given my icebreaker, and I've given my speech number 2, organize your speech. And I said, so have you been an evaluator? She said, no, I haven't been an evaluator yet, but I've done table topics 4 times. And of course, my speech has been evaluated, and I was the Toastmaster. I asked him to let me be the Toastmaster. Wow, a month into it. Her life is different. Her life is different, and it will forever be different. How many of you are different today than you were the first day you walked into your first Toastmasters meeting? Right? It's a no-brainer. Everybody has to raise their hand. We're all different because of the experience. And we're different every time we go to a meeting. This is compound interest building in our Toastmasters Club experience. Well, this young lady owes this to the lady who was sitting 2 chairs over, her friend and colleague, who had said, you know, I think we should have Toastmasters here, because she'd heard about it, and she had a friend who was a member. And so she made some phone calls, called Signal University, said, is this okay, can we do Toastmasters? And they said, sure, bring it in. So she made another couple of calls, and the district leaders got involved, and there will be a club. There were 60 people there yesterday. It was fabulous. It was fantastic. But this other lady had created the opportunity for this young lady to run out and join another club and do the things that she's done. And each of us, we have that opportunity every day, or at least every week as we go to a club meeting. But how often do we actually invite someone? How proud are we of what happens at our club? And are we thrilled and happy to ask someone to come? Or are we a little bit cautious sometimes about what's going on? And are we making the best impressions? You know, there are 292,000, that's the official number, it's really about 300,000 members of Toastmasters around the world. So that means that every week, 300,000 people go through this experience. 14,500 clubs, 122 countries. It's a phenomenal thing. Dr. Schmendler used to describe Toastmasters as a movement. That's a movement. That's pretty serious. It's a big deal. And these are cities ranging from Kathmandu, Nepal to right here in Pittsburgh, from Tokyo to Los Angeles, and from Moscow to Buenos Aires. It covers every continent. We used to have a club in Antarctica. They got a little cold, so but it's a phenomenal experience, and each of us joins for our own reasons. You know, I remember why I joined. The first Toastmasters Club meeting that I went to, I was a graduate student working on my MBA, and at the bottom of my resume there was a whole lot of white space, and I needed to fill that up with something. So I went to a Toastmasters Club meeting and I paid my dues, and I put it on there, and I didn't go back. It took me about 1.5 years to get back and get started. But why did you join? Think about that. What was it that caused you to go? And then, what caused you to stay? Yesterday, someone in the hall said, well, people join for whatever the reason was. And then she said, but we stay because of the friends and the camaraderie. So we've created this community. It's not just communication and leadership development. It's a community. It's a community of learners. And that's what our strength is. And this community is explosive. We now have about 450 clubs in India. 20 years ago we had 4. 10 years ago we had 12. And now we have 400. It's incredible. It's incredible. And each geography is this microcosm of who we are. But we do have an Achilles heel at the organization, and that Achilles heel is retention. And member retention is a challenge for us. And why is that? On the bright side, nearly 90% of members who leave Toastmasters say they had a great experience, they recommend Toastmasters to someone else, and they just might come back sometime in the future. Those are hard things to challenge, right? In a typical consumer products company, when you lose a customer, there's a problem. In Toastmasters, often there's not a problem. They came in, they learned, they got what they needed, and then they left. But there's a big question of they don't know what they don't know. What are the additional opportunities? What's the extended value proposition that we have to offer that they haven't figured out yet? And have we properly explained it to them? Does that opportunity exist in your club? Or does that opportunity exist only in another club somewhere else? And has someone talked to them about this? Let's think about mentoring for a minute. How many of you, when you first joined Toastmasters in your first week or 2 weeks, were assigned a mentor who helped you for at least the first 6 months? Raise your hand. Yeah, that number's way too low. And that's typical. 77% of clubs say they have some kind of mentoring program, but 75% of clubs say that it's unorganized, unstructured, and it's just kind of go as go comes. We don't really put it together. But the reality is that member retention goes way up, when there's a mentor assigned to every single person. So think about that. Go back to your club and analyze your mentoring program. And do you have it put together properly? And is it structured in such a way that every single person gets a mentor? And then what does that mentor talk to them about? How many of us sit down with our mentor, with the club vice president of education, and describe what our goals are, why we joined, what we want to do, what we want to learn? Do we have some objectives in the first month, in the first 6 months? Or does someone share enough information with us that we're able to build those objectives? If we're not doing that, the chances are that members are going to leave much, much faster. Now, we don't want member retention simply for the sake of member retention. So someone came to me last week, I was in Atlanta at a district meeting, and they said, we need a member retention program. And I said, okay, tell me why. Well, what's that going to do? We have a big program called Toastmasters Member Retention. It's not really the point. The point isn't member retention so that you can have a few more numbers and make sure that your club's distinguished. The point is to continue the Toastmasters journey, the Toastmasters experience that each of us enjoy. But we're the aberrations, right? We're in this room. We're the small percentage that comes here. And our objective then is to help those who are the rest of the group, those who don't come to this meeting, those who put in that 10 minutes of thinking and preparation before they go to their Toastmasters Club meeting on speech number 9, right? We've all seen that. Those are the ones that we need to help. That's our responsibility to help them have the best experience that they can possibly get. There's some other reasons that members tell us they leave. Club and district politics. Top of the list. So politics can be infighting. Politics can be inside jokes. Politics can simply be not being able to be part of the group because somehow you're on the outside and you haven't worked your way in yet. Overbearing leaders. Overbearing leaders. That one person who's been in your club for 25 years. You may be in the room today. And doggone it, that club is going to function like you want it to. And anybody who disagrees with you, we're going to make them uncomfortable enough that they leave. That's a big reason that members go. A lack of structure. You ever been to a meeting that's overly structured and it's not so much fun? The other end of the spectrum is a lack of structure where nobody knows what's going on, and the agenda comes that morning and it's really blank and you do a lot of filling in. Lack of structure. Hearing the same speakers again and again and again. Or pressure to become more involved. The pressure to, can you be the area governor? Can you please come to the area contest? Because it really all happens outside of the club. How often do we say that? We want more people here, we want to enjoy, but there are some people who just want to stay at their club meeting, and that can be okay. If you twist their arm too much, then they're going to walk away. Yes, ma'am, you have a question.
I do have a question. How do you balance too much pressure with helping someone stretch out themselves a little bit, as Steve mentioned earlier? How do you balance those two things?
Did you just read the next paragraph? It's an art form. It's an art form. The art of proper positive coercion, perhaps, is the way to do that. And that's going to vary by person. And some people need to get pushed hard, and some people you just have to learn how they work. So I think you're going to have to take that on a case-by-case basis. So it's great to be outside, and we all need to fill the next generation of leaders and make that move along, but doing it the right way. What do they want? They want opportunities to speak. They want an inspiring and motivating club environment, positive challenge, club and district leaders they respect, professionalism, and they love to listen to other speakers and learn from them. So if your meeting is overly focused on parliamentary procedure in the business meeting so that you only end up with one, maybe two speakers, that's not what your club members want. That they learn as much from watching others as they do from speaking themselves, and they want to hear more speeches. So let's work together. Let's focus on those things. And there are positive things that we can do. Club officers in the room, raise your hand. Now keep your hand up if you went to training. Well, not too many went down. That's fantastic. There is a massive positive correlation between member retention and if the club officers went to training, and a club being distinguished and if the club officers went to training. Now, that assumes that you have fabulous training, right? So you need to have really, really good TLIs. And people have brought up to me since I've been here, and I'm not just saying this, that the last TLI you had was really, really good. So I hope that's true. So critical piece. Now what can you do as district leaders to help member retention? Listen. Listen. Critical piece. Listen. What is it that members want? What is it, how do you develop this conference program? What is it about TLI that they like and that they don't like? What are these things that you can do listening to them, not basing it upon what you think, but upon what they think? These statistics I quoted to you and this other information is not stuff that I made up or my team made up or the board of directors made up. Because it's not about what we think. It's about what the members think. And we spend an inordinate amount of resources learning what the members think so that when we create the Toastmasters of the future, it's based upon what we want today and what our members are going to want tomorrow. A critically important piece to organizational development. All right. Let's talk about club quality for a minute. Calvin, I'm going to put you on the spot. Stand up and join me for a minute. Describe for us a quality club meeting.
A quality club meeting is where there's a plan, you have an agenda, and everybody's enthusiastic about being there and carrying out their parts. And one of the fortunate things we have is that people will step in, the parts are filled like that. That's great.
Fabulous. Thank you. Nice round of applause. Three attributes of a quality club meeting.
Great speeches, positive and encouraging evaluations, and happiness.
Happiness. Sorry.
Table topics. To follow up on Stephanie, the club should be fun, fulfilling, unmatched, and nurturing.
So without fail, when I come to a district conference, somebody will ask me with a very serious look in their eyes, so Dan, we have some clubs that are struggling. What can we do? How can we make them better? And what do you think my answer is? Club quality. Well, how does that work? How can we actually do that? If clubs are fun and nurturing and entertaining with great speeches and an organized program, they're naturally going to attract members. If you have a club that 2 years ago had 25 members, and then it went to 18, and then it went to 16, and then it went to 15, and now it's 10, and you're really struggling to even get them to pay members for 6 or 8, to pay dues for 6 or 8 members next time, what's the problem? What's the problem? There's something wrong with club quality, because it's either not fun, it's not nurturing, it's not entertaining, the program isn't organized, the speeches aren't good. One of those things is not happening, or one or more of those things are not happening that has caused that club to fall down and decay. Now, for all of us, it's second nature. We could stand up and talk for 30 minutes, and well, we'd start to repeat ourselves after 3. But we could define club quality that's exactly like this, and we kind of stand up straight and feel good about ourselves. But the reality is that more than half of our clubs aren't presenting a quality program. And it's our job to get out there and help them do that. So the area governors that all stood up this morning, raise your hand. Did you know that you're the most important person? Your hands didn't go up very far. Did you think I was going to pick on you for something? You're the most important person in the organization, according to Dr. Smedley.
Absolutely.
And why? Is that Mary?
Yeah.
All right, I met Mary yesterday and we'll never forget her. We were at a meeting and theoretically I was the speaker. And someone asked me a question and I started to answer the question and Mary decided she needed to help me. And she did a great job doing that. Because we were talking about the area governor and she went up, it's me, and talked for me. It was fabulous. So, back to what I asked the area governors to raise their hand. The most important person in the organization is not me, is the CEO, it's not the international president, it's not Steve, you all right with it not being me? It's the area governor. It's the area governor. Do you know what came first, districts or areas?
Areas.
Areas did. Areas were first. So back long ago, when there were just a few Toastmasters clubs, and it was starting to grow, somebody came back from a club meeting, and there were maybe 8 or 10 clubs, and said, these guys, and it was all guys back then, they're not doing this quite right. And so Dr. Smedley and J. Clark Chamberlain and a couple of those old timers got together and said, you know what, we need somebody to go around and make sure that there's club quality and consistency. I don't know if they used those words, but that was the intent. And so they invented the area governor. And the area governor's job was to go in and tell them what they were doing right and what they were doing wrong and help them get back on track. The area governor's primary job wasn't to make sure that there were a couple of speech contests during the year. It was to make sure the club quality is high so that the member experience can be fabulous. So area governors, ask yourself that. If that's your focus and you're able to do that, or if you're distracted by other things, and if so, delegate the other things off to someone else. And if you're at a club meeting and something is not right, have the courage to properly, using some artistry, let them know that it's not right. The first area governor visit that I ever saw was in a club that I had been a member of since it chartered. And the area governor came in, and frankly, we were a fabulous club. And we have for, oh my goodness, 20 years now, been President's Distinguished all but 3 years. And his one critique was that we didn't have a hotel counter bell that you could bang on when people were saying ums and ahs. And I thought, really? You're the area governor and you're telling us that we need a bell to make people freak out when they say So if you're doing that kind of stuff, area governor, stop it. And talk about the things that we just talked about. Talk about club quality and the things that we need to do. If you're curious about how to actually make this happen, then log on to the website and download the Moments of Truth module. How many of you are familiar with the Moments of Truth? Successful club series, right? First impressions, fellowship and variety, member orientation, all of those things that make it all work. And each time, area governors, please follow the guide as you go in. I know it's long and lengthy, but follow the guide. And are they doing these things? And if they're not doing these things, let them know. Talk to them about it and get it right. And then once they start doing those things right, then they're going to be able to do all the things that Charlie said, and then they're going to be President's Distinguished, and then we're going to be meeting member expectations, having fabulous member experience because all the clubs will be quality, and then you guys can stop asking me about national advertising. Right? Because every January somebody calls and says, "Are we going to have a Super Bowl ad this year?" No, we're not going to have a Super Bowl ad this year. One, we don't have the money to have a Super Bowl ad. But two, we can't fulfill the brand promise. We can't. When you watch the Pepsi ad, and there's the blue Pepsi can, and you go to the store, there's a blue Pepsi can. And it's going to taste like Pepsi's supposed to taste. If we put national advertising on, and we painted what Toastmasters is, you go to half of our clubs, that's not what it is. Only half of our clubs, it is what it is, should be. Something like that. So when we get there, then we can do that. But until then, don't ask me anymore. Toastmasters is always evolving. And we make a difference. And I want to share with you a couple of little bits about how Toastmasters changes the world. And it really does. And how Toastmasters is different between here in Cincinnati and here in New York and here in Los Angeles, and how it's the same between here and there. Thank you for the introduction. We all know that we all write our own introductions, right? and so when you go somewhere and Tony Robbins is there or someone, and there's this long introduction and music and fanfare, we know, because we're Toastmasters, that he wrote that. So it's not quite as impressive. So introductions drive me crazy, because I don't know that, for me, I've ever been happy with an introduction, and I get to write my own. So I think that's my problem and my fault. So what is it that I really do? My daughter asked me that a couple of months ago, and she said, "So, Dad, what do you do? Like, what do you really do?" And I had to think about it for a minute, and I realized that what I do is talk to people, and talk with people, and that's what my job is, all the time. I don't have, don't ever try and call my office phone and leave me a voicemail, because I won't see it for a long time, because I never sit at my desk that has my phone. I'm always somewhere at a conference table, or in someone's office, or on a conference phone, or something somewhere talking with people. So it is really cool what I get to do, and I'm very fortunate. And I talk to Toastmasters around the world every day. I left my phone in my room deliberately because I know that I get email 24 hours a day from around the world. And wherever somebody's waking up or going to bed, there's a problem, and they think that I can solve it for them, so I get an email or a text or a phone call about that. And so it is kind of cool that every day somewhere around the world I have the opportunity to touch and communicate. But part of the result of that is that they tell me stories, and they let me know what's happening with their personal experience in Toastmasters, with their club or with their district, just something that's going on. So a while back, I got a call from a club in a country that was newly free. And they were chartering a new club and not quite there, and they had come across the thing about club officer elections. And they said, "Explain this to me. Not quite sure what that means." And I said, "What do you mean? Not quite sure what that means?" And we talked for a while, and the result was, essentially, they were used to people telling them what to do. And deciding that you were going to do this, and you were going to do this, and you were going to do this, and you were going to do that. And the whole concept of someone saying, "Hey, I want to be the vice president membership," was totally alien. And so the nomination process, new. The election process, new, different, strange. But they figured it out. And so we put a little bit, a small injection of this American experience at its core, of Toastmasters into this country, and now there are a bunch of clubs there. India, I mentioned India a few minutes ago. India is an amazing place. If you get a chance to go to India, go to India. There was a gentleman there who 20 years ago sent me a letter, and I found this letter last year. And he said, we want to start a Toastmasters club in Bangalore. And I remember at the time reading that and thinking, I wonder what Bangalore is. Never heard of that. If any of you work in high tech, you know what Bangalore is. The Silicon Valley of India. So he started a Toastmasters club there. And now there are 400-something Toastmasters club there. The average age of members, maybe 25, 27 in India. When we survey them or when I've been able to speak with them, the reasons they tell me they join is leadership, first of all. Clearly leadership, because most of them that are that age and educated, and the education levels in India are skyrocketing, have a job with a big company not making any money, and the likelihood is that they don't have a lot of chances to better themselves and to move up the chain. Even though the caste system of India is falling behind, within corporate structures it's still very much in place. So they're looking for leadership opportunities outside of Toastmasters. One of the fascinating things about them is the relative value of the rupee to the dollar. And it's not very high, it's really weak. So their relative investment in Toastmasters, much, much higher than ours is, much, much higher. And yet they're willing to make it because they see this immense value. About 4 years ago, I remember chatting with the district governor, and where's Josue, with the lieutenant governor of marketing, and talking to them about new clubs that we're forming. And they said, we just have too many. We got to slow this down. Hello? How does that work? And what they said was, we have so many leads coming in, and so these weren't leads that they were getting. They weren't having to do any overt marketing or sales calls. They were getting leads from us. So people in India were contacting the US, and we were pushing the leads back to them, and they had so many they couldn't handle them because the demand was so great. They didn't have enough people to make the phone calls, let alone enough people to do the demo teams or to be sponsors and mentors of these new clubs. So one year they had to say, in our district we could only handle 75 new clubs this year. We're going to have to stop it. We're going to have to stop it. So different times, different places, clearly, but an amazing thing. China right now, again, from a couple of clubs a decade ago to 2 districts, a couple of 100 clubs each, a plan to form a 3rd district, huge. In theory, there are 300 million English speakers in China. So that's about how many there are in the US. And it's an incredible market. Average age, again, low 20s, university educated, wanting to do something with their lives. But the big problem is the secret police in China, who go to the meetings and sit in the back and listen and observe. So they're really careful to not talk about club officer elections or democratic processes or anything like that. In fact, at the beginning of the meeting, someone gets up and says, we will not talk about politics, religion, or sex, because we can't go there. In China, there is no legal structure that supports something like Toastmasters. So here, Toastmasters International, the IRS, is classified as a 501c3, and each Toastmasters club exists as a separate legal entity under that 501c3 umbrella. And to us, that's just normal way of doing business. China has nothing like that. So Toastmasters is under the radar and not technically legal in China. And it makes us nervous, and it makes them nervous. But about 5 years ago, a high-ranking government official said, yeah, you guys are okay, just keep doing what you're doing. Well, okay, we'll do that, we'll see how that works out. So far it's working out okay. So some of the things that we just take for granted don't exist in these other parts of the world. There's, in the Middle East, again, this is the first place I ever heard this, where the sergeant at arms got up and said, no sex, religion, or politics. And then everybody looked at me like, is that okay? Can we restrict it? You know, I wanted to put on my American hat and hold up my flag and say, freedom of speech, talk about whatever you want. It doesn't work that way over there. It just doesn't work that way. Middle East is still dealing with a myriad of things as we see on the news every day. Well, I would say, as an American citizen, don't believe that you can't go over there and have a great time and be safe, because you can. The rest of the world is not hateful toward us, afraid of us, and throwing rocks at us on the streets like the news here would have you believe. So don't believe it. People love us still, and people love Toastmasters around the world. And you have friends in every Toastmasters club in all of these countries around the world, so don't hesitate to do that. If you're thinking of going to Malaysia to the International Convention next year, a beautiful English-friendly country with people who are just happy to see you and want to sit down and talk Toastmasters with you. Now, it may take your ear a while to adjust to what they call Manglish, which is Malaysian English. It takes a little bit of an art to do that. I want to tell you one final story, and I think some of you have heard this before. It's about some time that I spent in Bahrain 2 years ago. Bahrain is a little island in the Persian Gulf. It's close to Saudi Arabia, close to the United Arab Emirates. There are 60 Toastmasters clubs there. 60 clubs. And this little teeny island. It's a beautiful place, amazing architecture, relatively wealthy country. There's a big, giant U.S. naval base there that's behind a wall and nobody really gets to see. But there's still some impact because there are bars with Irish names outside of that. So that's where the Americans go. It's also where the Saudis go, but they won't tell you that. So I was visiting a corporation there that sponsors Toastmasters, and it's an amazing thing to go to the Middle East and be treated the way that you are. So we got in some cars and we drove into this company's giant compound, and we pulled up in front of this office building, and there were a bunch of people lined up outside and a red carpet. So we got out of the car, and I'm looking around trying to figure out who the red carpet is for. And it turns out it was for me, which was embarrassing and strange and all those things at the same time. And lined up there were a bunch of guys in black suits. And I was shaking their hands and they were saying hello and we were chatting, and I'm thinking, Arab guy, American accent, Arab guy, British accent, Arab guy, American accent. Really kind of strange, but cool at the same time. So we walked in through the red carpet into this building, and they took us into a reception room. And the reception room was about 3 times the length of this stage and had couches all along the side, and it was a wood floor like this. And at one end, the picture of the king and the prime minister and the prince something or other on the wall. And there were 2 big chairs at that end. And again, I thought, I wonder who those chairs are for. It turns out one of them was for me. So we went and sat down in the chairs. And the chief operations officer of the company came and sat down, and he had a binder. And we started chatting, so there were people lined up all around the room. And on this side of the room, there were 8 or 9 guys there, all in suits. And then at the other end, there were a bunch of ladies. And the ladies were often segregated. And a waiter came in, and he starts with food and drink. So he brings it to me first, and I said, yeah, I'll be happy to have some of that. Put it on the little table, because I'm talking and I don't have time to eat. So he brings something else, and he said, would you like some of this? And I said, no thanks, that's fine. So he takes it and leaves the room. And I thought, I wonder why he did that. Then he brought something else to me, and I said, sure, I'll have that, and sat it down. And I can't eat any of this stuff. And he comes in and he says, would you like some of this? And I said, no, that's fine. So he leaves the room. And I thought, I get it now. If I don't take any, then nobody else in the room gets some. So the guy opens the binder and he starts going through all of this Toastmasters stuff. And so within this corporation, Toastmasters is a big deal. And so there are photocopies of all these CC and AC certificates, a couple of DTM certificates, and I recognize them because they have my signature on them, so that's pretty cool. And he starts telling me about the people who have earned these. And he says, now, look, all of these people who got CCs got an automatic 5% salary increase. How cool is that? And then you get your ACB, and the same thing happens. And then you get your DTM, and you get a bunch more. They recognize the immense value of the Toastmasters program. It's built in. It's built in to their HR system. So I saw these folks 2 years ago, and I saw a couple of them again at the International Convention this year. And I said, so how's it going? Is it all still working out? And they said, if you want a promotion in our company now, you better have gone to Toastmasters, because you're not going to get it without it. It's an amazing It's a testament to the power of the program, that it really works, right? We know it works. We know it works. And tonight I'll talk to you a little bit more about how we're going to make it work and be more obvious and more valuable in our society in the year and a half to come. But to finish the story with Bahrain, so we spent the morning with all these guys, and one of the ladies was with us throughout the rest of the day. And it was clear that she had some influence in the company, but was still kind of different from where the guys were. And they set a giant lunch for us, and that's part of the culture, is they throw a lot of food at you, and that kind of shows how much they appreciate that you're there. So a big long table with an immense amount of food. And then the president of the company came in, and we hadn't met him before, and he was about this tall. And so the photos are kind of funny with the two of us standing next to each other. But he had been meeting that morning with the king. Besides being the president of his company, he was also a senator in Bahrain. He had a meeting with the king, so we thought that was pretty cool. And we're talking about the society in the Middle East, and he was British educated. We started talking about the need for change. And he was clearly understanding that things needed to change, and he was trying to build this change within his company. And I thought, I'm going to be a little daring. And I said, so what about this young lady who's been with us all day? Talk to me about that. And he looked at me like, oh my goodness, why are you asking me this question? So he grabs my elbow and he kind of pulls me aside. And he said, well, she's changed a lot. She's changed a lot since we brought Toastmasters in. And apparently she was the first club president. And he said, she talks back to me now. She talks back to me now. And I thought he was done at that point. And then he whispered really quietly. He said, I'm not sure how I feel about that. But I know it's a good thing. But I know it's a good thing. So don't ever doubt the power of the Toastmasters program. It's an amazing thing. We all have the opportunity to create and share that experience with thousands of people who are going to come after us. It's a cool thing. It's an amazing responsibility. It's a little bit heavy on our shoulders at times. But think of the legacy. I often think about Dr. Smedley, who in essence sat in my chair 90 years ago. That's a lot of weight for me. But he couldn't see the day when there were 500 clubs in Toastmasters. He wrote that down. He said, I can't even imagine us having 500 clubs. Now we have 14,500 clubs. So what does tomorrow hold? We don't know. But as long as we focus on club quality and member experience and consistency, we're going to get there. Madam Toastmaster.